Hey everybody, Amy here. I'm just popping in before the start of each episode this week to let you know that this week is the end of our ADHD series. We'll go back to normal broadcasting next week, normal episodes dropping on a Monday. This week, what you're going to see is each day, Monday to Friday, is a little episode popping in that is a PS episode. Simply because each of the guests that I interviewed came back to me afterwards and said, oh my goodness, these are the things that I forgot to say. And I thought initially, that's fine, that happens with every episode. But then I realised, actually, it's an ADHD thing, and what more perfect way to celebrate the end of our ADHD series than a PS from our guests. And so each day you'll have a different little PS. It's a different type of episode. I'm just giving them kind of free rein. Share what you want to share. They've got their notes, so nothing gets forgotten. Enjoy those. On Friday, you'll hear from me, and we'll go to an episode today. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Art of Decluttering. I'm here today with Carly, who has her PS episode. Hey, Carly.
Hi, Amy. Thank you.
I know. I'm loving these little PS episodes. I just think it's so perfectly ADHD.
Yes, it's a nice chance to follow up I wish I'd said.
So go for it. I'm going to give you the floor. Our listeners already know you. They've listened to your first episode, hopefully. And if not, listeners, go back and listen to Carly's episode first. And then this will really add to the things that she's got to share. So take it away.
Thank you, Amy. So in the first episode, one thing I did talk about was, getting through what I got through in terms of schooling, high enough marks to get into engineering, and holding it all together, I guess, until children. There were times where it was pretty shaky, which I also spoke about with uni, but I guess I wanted to be realistic as well that I had a lot of structure in place in my upbringing inadvertently, which happened to be all the right things for when you have ADHD. Not that I knew it at the time, or my parents knew it, but for listeners, I guess, in terms of what those things were that I landed on that we put in place without knowing it was ADHD. But also, if anyone is beating themselves up for not holding it together, it's because I had a lot of help. So I just want to make that clear. And so, yeah, I guess those structures were, first of all, my ADHD comes from Dad. He's very stereotypically inattentive. So Mum has that executive function. So the things I struggle with for my kids, like reminding them to do homework, packing lunches, all those things, Mum didn't struggle with. So even though she was working and managing a household, and it is a lot for anyone, and the life admin side, it wasn't as hard for her. So she had that structure that she could put in place for me as a child. So I had that support in terms of her reminding me to do my homework, motivating me. I'd often not want to do something and she'd say, just start or just go. If I didn't want to go to the sport or the activity, she knew once I got there, I'd be fine. It was that transition.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just go. And then if you don't want to, you don't have to. Knowing I would, just start with the homework. So those things were really helpful. I had extra help with reading from my teachers early on who noticed I needed more time for it to bed in.
Were you actually then allowed it in exams and things, or just in a classroom setting?
Just in a classroom setting.
That's great.
And just extra help before school where the teacher would do one-on-one. So that was good. So I had that structure. I guess also my parents just inherently were able to motivate me without it being pressure. So I was very lucky in that sense.
How? Because I'm not sure I nailed it. No, I'm sure I don't nail this one.
I'm not sure either. I think it's about applying myself and doing my best. So whatever I got, that was fine, as long as I'd given it a good crack.
And
the same applied to my brother, and he breezed through a lot of classes, but then my parents would have a go at him for not applying himself as he could have. So, there were a few times when he said, but my marks are higher than Carly's. And they said, well, it's different. She tried.
It's really true.
So, yeah, I think it was that side of things. I had one teacher in English who, for me, it was a relatively easy assignment. So I did what I needed to do to get an A in my mind. And you talked about that competition with myself, and I remember the marks came back and it was an A minus with a comment next to it, you can do better than this.
Oh.
And it wasn't one that was, counted towards our final marks or anything. So it was just the kick I needed to make sure that next one I gave it my all.
And the teacher obviously knew that too, because if it was in a subject that you struggled in, it would have been different.
Yeah. And the others that struggled more got the A's and the A pluses because they tried, even though the final written piece probably wasn't as strong as mine.
Yeah.
But it was that. And I, of course, I argued the point and said, but mine was, written better. And it was, yes, but I know you could have done more.
Oh, amazing. What a good teacher.
So just, I think those are the sorts of things I wanted to flag afterwards in terms of the support and ongoing support. I know financially not everyone can get an assistant or help in the house. And I just said to you earlier, the struggle for me is not the finance, it's the barrier of the admin of finding someone to do that. So I've got mum helping me.
To your mum to help you find someone who could even do some of your virtual assistant stuff, or that can be one of her jobs.
Yeah, well, she's now helping on that side. So,
that's awesome.
Things like you often think of needing help with childcare, picking the kids up, dropping them off. And I thought, well, we can do that. I can do that. It's the other bits and pieces I struggle with. And, for parents in different circumstances that might not be the childcare side, the timing doesn't work or, their strengths. So I thought, I need someone to run errands and do the life admin. And that's not a strength of mine.
Yeah.
So I spoke to mum about, she said, how can I help? And friends and parents will say, how can we help? And for you, it was your dad cooking meals.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I said to mum, well, if there's all these errands. I've got shoes in my boot that I've had there for 3 months because I just haven't had a chance to get to the cobbler, think returns. And mum said, I'll do all that. I love that stuff. I'll be your PA. So, she's my assistant.
While we're talking, I've written down, I've just had like one of those moments when you were talking about that your mum had really good executive function and so could remind you to do your homework or, kind of remember to get you to pack your lunches. And I've just written down a note for myself is I've got this executive functioning skills to cover myself and I don't have them to cover the other ADHDs in my family. And I'd not realized that until you said it about your mum. I'm like, oh, I don't have that. I don't think I've ever said to my kids, have you got your lunch? Because I've just never would have thought of it. I mean, they make their own lunches, but that's a really, like now I'm thinking maybe I should hire like a 20-year-old to come to my house for an hour every afternoon to sit with my kids while they do their homework, because that's something I can't do. I don't think of it. That is horribly boring. I would much rather be working. But it's like, it seems like a stupid thing to need someone to help with. But as you're saying, you've got to find that thing that's actually too hard for you.
Yeah. And that's where I have, I had tutors for the kids and said, they'll say, here's things you can practice in between to maximize our time. And I said, I'll be honest, we won't do that because I'll forget. And I'm paying you to do this. If all you do with them is that recap, it's better than them not doing it at all.
Yep.
That's why I've put aside that set time. So, they're happy with that. It's the expectation management side of it as well.
We had one of our tutors say that actually, said, I feel really bad getting them to do the work in the session. What I'd prefer to do is them to do the work at home. They bring it in, we go over it, we talk about where it could be improved. I said, no. You have to do the work in the tutoring and then do the follow through next week because it ain't happening.
Yeah,
and
that's the point.
She was quite relieved because she said, oh, I thought I was wasting your money. I was like, no, you are definitely not.
Yeah. So I think it's just being clear on that for others and yourself and understanding why.
I
And
love
for
that.
others here who don't have family, like there might be a friend or someone else, in their life, in their village, who offers to help. Because people say, how can I help?
Yeah.
With the why. And if it's, well, I'm really crappy at these admin skills and you're really good at them,
That's so good.
could be something to reach out. So that was my little PS that I wanted to add, was, I guess, the help, but also the structure that I did have that was helpful in terms of the skills side, pills and skills. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. Listeners, I think that what Carly's just added then is that perfect like cherry on top for her episode, which is exactly what these PS episodes are meant to be. Make sure you go back and listen to her episode. Carly, I said to you before, I got an email from a listener just saying how much they loved your episode, that you had given them freedom in areas that they thought they were feeling guilty about doing. And so listening to you, they were like, oh, that's allowed. And simply by just hearing you express it, they gave themselves permission to enjoy having that freedom as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely to hear.
Yeah, listeners are the best. And listeners, you guys I hadn't been checking the reviews very often because I know the podcast is awesome and I just kind of forget sometimes. But I went in there the other day and oh my goodness, thank you so much for the reviews that you're leaving. If you haven't left a review, I would love you to go in and leave one. You might need to, I think last time we played with your Google Home, Carly, and asked people for it to set an alarm. So if that alarm went off and you never quite left the review, today might be your day. Thank you, Carly, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye. I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land this podcast is recorded on. I would also like to pay respects to their elders, both past and present, of the Kulin Nation, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love you to rate and review the show on your podcast app. That will help others to find the Art of Decluttering podcast as well. If you'd like any more information, you can visit theartofdecluttering.com.au, and I would love to see you in my Facebook group. Just search the Art of Decluttering community on Facebook and join today. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day and enjoy the freedom.